Mae Krier, an original Rosie the Riveter, was born in 1926 in North Dakota. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Mae, her sister, and a friend headed to Seattle, Washington, where Mae became a riveter for Boeing, making B-17s and B-29s for 92 cents an hour. She met Norm, her late husband, a sailor, on the dance floor in 1944. Norm was transferred to Pasco, Washington, and in April 1945 they married. She left Boeing to work for the Army engineers with Italian prisoners of war in Pasco at 83 cents an hour. Eventually they settled in Pennsylvania, where they raised their 2 children and where Mae still resides today. Mae joined other Rosies to get the first National Rosie the Riveter Day in 2017 and the Congressional Gold Medal for Rosie in 2020. During the pandemic, through her Facebook page Honor Rosie, Mae, with the help of companies, groups, and individuals, made and mailed well over 6,000 red and white polka dot face masks. 5,000 masks went directly to her Honor Rosie followers. In 2022, her face mask and bandana were worn by Rosie the Rocketeer in the commander's seat of the Boeing Starliner, which traveled to the International Space Station and back. In April of 2024, Mae accepted the Congressional Gold Medal on behalf of all Rosies. It was a great honor to her. Mae continues to travel the world to promote Rosie the Riveter's legacy, and at 99 years, Mae still cuts her own grass. Now it's time to join Breaking Barriers with Mae Krier.
Good morning. Good morning, Deb.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to have Brandi on today.
It's going to be great. Let me first do a commercial. If you have not seen or bought Mae Krier's We Can Do It book, this was a book written by her friend Dave Winters. It's about her life. It's a great way for Rosie's legacy to continue. So you can buy the book on Amazon or order it from your local bookseller. How was that for a commercial, Mae? Okay.
That sounded great. And we're doing well with our sales.
Yeah, we've hit 300 since December 5th. Not bad. Not bad.
No, it isn't. And it's amazing, Deb, that how it came about. I had no idea that Dave and all of you were putting this book together. I believe you worked a year on it. And I didn't have a clue of what you were doing.
So it shows how good of liars we are, right?
No, you don't lie. You just stretch the truth.
We stretch a lot lately in the last few years to surprise you. Yes, we have. But you're right. We have a special guest today. We're bringing our dear Brandi, who invited us to do this podcast over a year ago and is behind the scenes making all this magic happen. So we're bringing her from behind the podcast to share her story. Brandi is a veteran's advocate, a published author, podcaster, and really an extraordinary woman who we are proud to call friend. So, Brandi, come on out.
Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hi, Brandi. What a pleasure you are. What a wonderful day it was for me when I met you.
Same here.
And tell us about your adventure, Mae, with Brandi.
You want me to tell you, Brandi, it's such a marvelous story. When you called me or contacted me and asked me would I like to come spend a week with you in Texas with you and your group, I was stunned. I thought it was really nice, but after you explained everything and told me all the things you wanted to do, I thought it was so outstanding. But what was so amazing was the fact that you came here to Philadelphia to help me go back to Texas. When the program was over, you came back with me to Philadelphia, spent the night with me, and then you went back to Texas. I thought that was so amazing because you have your own problems health-wise, and here you are looking out for me. And we had such a wonderful week. I mean, we'll talk about it as we go along, but I can't thank you enough, Brandi, for that week. It was so amazing, not only getting to meet you, but the programs and the things you got me involved with, the things I'll never forget in my lifetime.
It was truly my honor for me being able to say that I was able to sleep in an original Rosie the Riveter's house. That's something I never imagined. And the people that you touched when you were here in Texas, the schools we went to, the towns that we basically toured, the tank that you drove, and the archery event. I mean, every day, every day, like she would be 8 to 12 hours, like she would not stop. And for me, I was just like, how does she have so much energy at 97? This is amazing.
Well, I was blessed with good energy. And Brandi, I've never hit problems like you have. I mean, your story is unique, and I'm sure that we're going to get deep into it. But I can't begin to thank you for what we did. When you took me to Uvalde, that'll live in my heart forever. That was such an unbelievable trip, such an unbelievable experience for me. And I just think the things you did, but we're here to talk about you, Brandi. And all the things you do for us in our podcast.
All right, so we're going to start out with, we know that you're a veteran, but why was serving in the military so important to you?
So I come from a military family. My grandfather served in the Coast Guard. My father served in the Army, and we were raised as like Army brats, I guess they would call it, or dependents. So we went to Germany, Georgia, New Mexico, back to Germany. I was able to see the fall of the Berlin Wall when I was a child. So for me, I always believed that the most honorable thing that you could do in this life was to serve your country. And so I don't think I was out of high school a week, and I was in boot camp.
Wow. What was your rank in, you joined the Air Force. What was your rank and what did you do in the Air Force?
Sure. So I actually joined as an E1, meaning I was a slick sleeve. I had no rank at all when I first came in, and I worked very hard. And when I retired, I retired as a staff sergeant or an E5. I believe I'm the lowest ranking person to ever come on your podcast, and I'm quite honored.
Brandi, why did you pick the Air Force? Any particular reason?
So in all branches, we all have like beliefs on which branch has the best of things. And unfortunately, they always think that's the Air Force. That's not always necessarily true. And my father said, don't make the mistake that I made, go in the Air Force. They have everything better there. And so for me, I wanted to join the Army, and I was very interested in the Navy, but they didn't really have recruiters where I lived, which was in very northern Wisconsin near the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, because it was very close to the border. And so my parents actually were the ones that started writing as my name to the Air Force recruiter. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going in the Air Force then.
But, I love the Air Force. They've been so good to me. They've given me a lifetime award. They flew me to Salt Lake City and given me a lifetime award. And they've just invited me to so many wonderful places. So the Air Force has a special place in my heart.
So, Brandi, what did you do in the Air Force?
So I wanted a specific job. So I did the delayed entry program for about a year and a half because I didn't want to be a cook. Nothing's wrong with being a cook, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a medic. And so I became an aerospace medical technician. Our school has about an 85% washout rate, meaning that only about 15% of the class you start with is the ones that will graduate. And then I did my clinicals because you get trained similarly to a nurse with some things that a nurse can't do, actually. I didn't know that nurses couldn't suture for years after that. But you do your clinicals. So I did my technical school at Shepherd Air Force Base, which is Wichita. Was it Wichita? Forgot the name already. Dang. Yes, I went to Shepherd Air Force Base, and then I went to Travis Air Force Base in California, which is Northern California, to do my second clinical aspect of what my job was to be. I later became an EMT. I became an EMT through the training, but I became an EMT instructor, a CPR instructor trainer. I was the youngest training site faculty in my installation in England. And I also taught combat lifesaver and a bunch of other things as well. I felt training was very important, not because that those who can't do teach. I was very good at what I did, but if you were going to come pick me up at my house, I wanted to make sure that you could do the job the same way as I could.
So how long did it take you to achieve your goal to be a medic or EMT?
You become an EMT in your school, your technical school, your AIT, other branches call it. So that course is about 6 weeks in the military. It's about a 6-month course outside of the military. So I became an EMT in 2003. I became an EMT instructor in 2007. And it was very odd because of the fact that I was an E4. And usually you have to be like a senior enlisted, like an E7 or an E8. So it was very odd sometimes. I would teach EMT refresher, and I would have to teach my section supervisors. I would have to teach my own supervisors. And so it made it a little odd when they failed for one reason or another, or they would sleep in your class. And I got very frustrated because it was always the people that supervised me that would act up in my classes, but I couldn't physically punish them. However, there was no rule against community PT. So if they fell asleep in my class, we'd all do push-ups until everyone is nice and awake. I didn't run, but I was very good at push-ups.
So
we don't have to do that, Deb.
Okay, thank God. Yeah. I'm always happy when I can get my left leg through my pants in the morning, it's like, that's a good deal. So at what year were you in, and what caused your early retirement? We want to get into what happened to you in England.
Sure. So I entered the military in 2003 in June. And, the reason I was retired, it was a very interesting case. I had arterial blood clots in both legs, my right arm, my heart, my left kidney. And basically it went untreated for about 6 weeks. And during that time, I was told that I was too fat for medication. I was making it up, that it wasn't that big of a deal. And my right arm turned like Barney purple, and so did my legs. I couldn't walk 50 feet without just like almost screaming in agony, because I found out later that my organ system started to shut down. Yes, I found out later that what had happened and why there was so much apathy was, a lot of the very astute physicians had just deployed, including mine, Dr. DeLima, and he went to Afghanistan. I was not allowed to accompany him because we were told we were too great of assets and we had to go at separate times, because you usually go as a package, like one doctor, one nurse, one tech, one admin, something like that.
Brandi, this took place. Where did this happen?
This happened in England. I was stationed at RAF Lakenheath at the time. And I thought it was like, I finally made it. I left the deserts of New Mexico. This was paradise for me. And basically I had a supervisor that had mental health issues. She stopped taking her medication. She started talking to people that weren't there. She would growl at the airmen. They were very afraid of her. And she was my supervisor, and we were very close in rank, so she should not have supervised me. Usually if you're an E4 testing for E5, your supervisor has to be at least like 2 ranks above you. And that didn't happen. She was an E5. And so I stood up to her, and she ended up getting into some serious trouble because she tried to physically assault me across the table during a staff meeting. Like, she jumped the whole table. and she had to be pulled back by each leg. And when I started having these issues, what she would do, I found out later through technicians from the clinics, is she would look up my appointments, which is a HIPAA violation, but she would look up my appointments and she would go to that clinic the day before and say, oh, she's malingerer. She makes this stuff up all the time. I was so busy between my doctor, who had the output of a clinic by himself, and teaching. I never had been on quarters or been sick a single day. I couldn't. And so this was untrue. And because of that, they overlooked all of the day one medical school type of things that you would notice, like you would check their pulses, things like that. I ended up begging to see a rheumatologist in the British side. And the rheumatologist said that you need immediate angiogram. You need to be immediately hospitalized. This is something quite serious. And the doctor said, you're just not that important when I got back.
Brandi, do they treat like a blood clot different than they would a bullet wound when you're in the military?
Well, yes, it would be treated very differently because, one, they would see the trauma right away. But sometimes with blood clots, especially venous clots, it can take months, if not longer, sometimes, for doctors to recognize it. We had a patient that the only reason that the blood clot was found was because my doctor happened to see him because he had a cancellation. And there were some doctors that had missed critical diagnoses, like the blood clot was one, and then there was another with someone with a fractured spine that they said that they needed to stop malingering.
How did the government treat it different, the two situations?
Well, they would just look at it in like the triage-based system. They would look at, a bullet wound, like they can see the trauma, they know what it is. But unfortunately, with blood clots, sometimes it's harder to definitively diagnose right away. And if you're not trained enough or you don't want to follow up with it, unfortunately, things can be missed. And I was unfortunately a casualty of that.
So what is there a reason that you got these blood clots?
So they found out many, many years later that it was, they believe it had something to do with a genetic condition. And they also had a strong considerations that it had to do with these extreme amounts of stress I was going through.
It could have been genetic.
Well, the genetics didn't cause the clots themselves. It was due to the extreme amounts of stress. And then I was on a medication that had a risk of venous clots. But because I had arterial clots, I became this great medical mystery. To this day, I still don't know.
What's a venous clot and an artery clot? What's the difference?
So a venous blood clot is in your veins. The arterial blood clots usually are what would cause like a stroke or other conditions like pulmonary embolisms, things like that. Basically, like one tiny clot in your arteries can absolutely kill you. I had thousands,
Wow.
thousands upon thousands, and actually ended up in a medical journal because I actually survived. And the only reason I did was because of the fact that I became so frustrated that nobody was taking this seriously. And I knew it was getting worse. And I felt like one day I was lit on fire, and I was screaming through the gate, and I knew all of the security forces because they were my patients. And so they just, waved me on. Well, they basically gave me morphine and Percocet, and they said, you can go home now. They didn't bother to admit me. And when I got home that day, I heard a voice, like a big, loud, booming voice. There was no one in my house. And it said, if you do not get treatment in the next 2 days, you will die. And I said, okay, that's enough for me. And I went straight back to that ER and I said, I am going to the British hospital right now. Like, you are not taking this matter seriously. So you have two options. You can either take me by ambulance to the Adam Brooks Hospital, which is in Cambridge, or I'm going to physically walk there myself and you'll do the paperwork anyway. Which would you prefer? And they kind of looked at me and they treated me like I was a huge inconvenience. And they rolled their eyes. And so they had to do certain checks because they had to give it to the ER staff when they went in, which was the first time in 6 weeks they had checked my pulses on my feet. If a leg is purple and you examine it, the first thing you want to do is check a pulse. No one had bothered to check my pulses. They couldn't find anything. Then they grabbed a Doppler. They still couldn't find anything. And they said, "Oh, this is bad." And I said, "I know. I've been asking you guys to help me for 6 weeks, and nobody has." Because they actually my supervisor forced me to do a PT test during this time, and I failed it, obviously, because I couldn't even walk it. So they put me on the Fat Girl program. And mind you, I went to PT every morning. Like I worked out with my physicians because I knew I couldn't run fast. And so I always had to run because I needed to pass my test. And it was just, basically.
Well, Brandi, was this hospital in London? Was that military?
It was not. It was not. And it was not in London. It was in Cambridgeshire,
Cambridgeshire, yeah.
Yeah. And so,
what was that? Was that American military hospital? Or?
No, ma'am. It was
hospital. So you went into the English hospital, and then how did things proceed?
So I went into the English hospital that night. My husband was supposed to deploy to Afghanistan that night. And in England, the only place that's usually air conditioned is the ER because you could be there for weeks, waiting to be admitted. And when all of this happened, I was admitted into their ICU within less than 12 hours. No, not even, like 4 hours. And they go off of a triage-based system. Like, they don't usually schedule their surgeries. It's based off triage usually. And I remember my husband looking at me, and he said, "What should we do?" And right at that time, his unit deployment manager came to me and said, "So yeah, we know that you're about to have surgery and we know it's serious, but if he doesn't deploy tonight, he's going to be court-martialed. Like, we're going to immediately court-martial him because he didn't go on his deployment, even though you're going to have surgery. And if it's bad enough, he might come back. And so you need to choose his career right now." And so I did. And I did what I thought was the honorable thing. I thought it was going to be something small. I'd never had surgery before. I'd never really been sick. I'd never broken a bone. And so this was all very new to me. I'd worked in the other side of surgery, but I had never been the patient like that. And so I told him to go. And little did I know what hell was going to look like. Because I did my first angiogram. I almost put out on the table, I remember. And they cut into your groin, into your femoral artery, and they inject a dye, and like they'll take pictures and it'll show like if there's any blockages in your arteries. And doing that in your artery is dangerous enough because you're literally cutting open an artery. And so you have to make sure that there's nothing that happens 12 hours afterwards. Well, my legs lit up like a Christmas tree. They had never seen so many blood clots on one person, and they were still living, much less in their arteries. And they weren't just in my legs, they were everywhere. And I remember about 50 doctors walked in, and I remember screaming, like, "If you're not the doctor, the technician, or the radiographer, get that out." And they didn't listen. But I had surgery. I remember they said, I remember having to call my mother because in England, you have to pay for everything in a hospital. Like things that we don't think about, like using a telephone, like watching a TV in the hospital bed, you have to pay by like the day. And I just brought like I don't even think I brought my purse. Like I didn't have anything with me. And so they literally had to wheel me to the nurse's station in my bed. I couldn't move because I just didn't have angiogram. I couldn't even have a pillow. I had to call my mother because I overheard these nurses because I was like, I'm very hungry. And I remember hearing a nurse telling another nurse, no, she can't have anything. She's about to have surgery. And I was like, what? And I had to call my mother and she had just gone to work. And I had to tell her, Mom, I'm about to have surgery. I don't know what's about to happen. And the surgeon walked up who was about to tell me I had surgery and took the phone and explained it to both of us basically at the same time. And I didn't know it at the time, but that vascular surgeon was one of the best in the world. He actually personally treated the Queen at the time. And so they told me, like, after I had the surgery, do you know how lucky you were? I was like, I don't feel very lucky right now. I do now, but at the time I sure didn't. And that's when it all began. And when everything happened, they told me that it'd be a few hours surgery and I'd be out. And I went into surgery about 2:00, and I remember them all praying around me. And I said, this doesn't make me feel good about this situation at all. And I was 23. I was young, like very young. So this was a very odd case because most vascular patients are 60 to 80. They're not 23. It's very odd. And when all this happened, I woke up and it was midnight, and I woke up were in their PACU after surgery, but it was their old morgue, and they only had one light on me, and the rest of the whole bay was dark. And I remember thinking I had passed away or something. Mm-hmm. And so I realized that I was fine-ish. And what they had found was I hadn't had circulation to my lower left leg, like below the knee, for about 6 weeks. So imagine kinking a garden hose for 6 weeks. What do you think would happen to that garden hose if it lasted that long once you released it?
What did our military, where did they fit into all this? Why weren't they there to help you?
They didn't know what to do. To be honest, they didn't know what to do. At first, they told my section that if anyone was to come and see me in the British hospital, that they would get a letter of reprimand, which is just below an Article 15. They kind of were in shock, like this is bad and it makes us look bad. And so I didn't see anybody for the first 3 to 4 days. But I was also on heavy amounts of morphine, so they may have come in at some point. But I didn't see anybody for 4 days. I saw my uncle, who flew from Germany, and he was retired Army, and he was the one that took over. There was one the ICU in England is not like what we are used to. You'll have 10 to 12 beds, kind of in 2 rows, and then one phone, which is for the nurses station. My uncle took over that entire desk, calling everybody and anybody he could. And around this time, I started seeing a lot of people from my duty section, but a lot of them, how do I explain this? So there was a sign-out sheet to come and see me after they realized it was very, very serious. And my spouse was deployed, and I had no children, nothing, nobody there. And so they had a sign-out sheet. Some people immediately started abusing the sign-out sheet, like my NCOIC. He used it to complete an affair. So I had people come visit me, but for 6 weeks, the only doctors that I came in to see me were the ones that usually were my doctor had to actually put my medical records under lock and key. Because of the fact that I became such a sideshow attraction, because I immediately had compartment syndrome, I immediately had necrotizing fasciitis, and I also had other limb salvages. And so, they basically had to cut open my leg where you see that big scar that goes from the knee. I didn't bring pictures, so I didn't want to scare anybody, but basically they left it all open to the air. So you could smell me from 150 feet away. And I don't want to go into depth and detail, but some people did vomit when they would see me. And that didn't make me feel good.
No. Did they say, were you supposed to ever walk again?
No, I was not ever supposed to walk again. They were pretty adamant that I would probably lose both legs well before the age of 40. They had never seen someone like me, and they actually had to send a wound vac from Balad. That was how the military doctors helped the British doctors, because they had never seen such a device. So they had to train them on it. And that's what you use for necrotizing fasciitis, to get all of the gunk basically out of the area consistently. Right. And it looks like black sludge. It's not fun.
Brandi, did you bring pictures of your legs? I think that should be seen. what they've done, what's happened to your legs?
Not the surgery one, but the ones you showed me, so that they would understand.
Other people don't understand when you're talking. They don't realize, like we call them zippers on your legs.
Yeah, I didn't. However, I can put them in the comments if you would like, so that way people can see what they look like. But basically, you could actually have reached into my leg and grabbed my shin bone with like a full hand. Like that was how like they took the entire lower left lateral compartment out to the bone. And then they end up doing a skin graft. They told me that I needed to stay there another 6 weeks. I had cabin fever so badly. I was like, no, if I'm going to pass away, I want to pass away in my own country. I please let me out of here. And so I did the skin graft. But unfortunately, the military doctors from England weren't done with me. So that one day that I was there, they were still deciding if they wanted to keep me stationed there or they wanted to air evac me. And they basically had me see a general surgeon who basically showed up one day in England to the hospital. He was very arrogant and he was not trained nearly enough. And he basically was very arrogant, and he came in basically with like a Holiday Inn Express like pitch. Like, well, I saw this once in Afghanistan. I probably could do the surgery. And he was like guilting me, telling me that my poor husband, because at that time he had been sent back about 2 weeks later. My poor husband had to drive 30 minutes to see me. And, you know, I was such a burden on my poor husband. And I said, he can stay home. Like, you're not going to take care of me. I'm going to have this vascular specialist treat me. You've done enough. Or not done enough.
Hey, what is going to be the end result, Brandi?
Well, the end result was that I lived.
Thank you. We're happy about that.
To help it frame what had happened, I asked my first sergeant about what she had seen when we did a documentary a few years ago, and because my co-host, like, I mean, I look a lot different than I did then, and so when I asked them, chief, because she's a chief now. Well, chief, what if you could explain what happened to me or what I looked like in England to Daniel? Like, what would you say? And she immediately, with no hesitation, said The Walking Dead.
Wow.
So I was air evac'd in August, and after that point.
But when did you learn to live with all of this?
It took years. I was very angry. I was in a lot of pain. I was on methadone, morphine, Percocet, and gabapentin, and Ritalin just to stay awake, all maximum doses, and I was still in agony. Like, I can't explain the pain enough because of the fact that I didn't know I could feel that kind of pain. And I found out later that a bilateral fasciotomy is the most painful surgery you can have. And all of the military brothers and sisters that I've ever met, they have very small scars. They're about this long. Mine are about this long.
I know, I've seen them many times, Brandi. What amazes me so is when I met you at the airport in Philadelphia, I got a chair because it's a long walk to the gate from where you check in. And you didn't, and I looked at you, and that was our first meeting. I couldn't believe that you were walking beside me. I'm sitting in a wheelchair, very healthy, and you are an amazing woman. Now, people have to see your what's happened to your scars and how you're dealing with it. I don't know, physically and mentally. That's a very difficult thing to do, and I'm sure you've had to handle it in every which way.
Do you still have pain today?
Always.
You have pain?
I do. It's not like it once was, thankfully. So when I left England, so you're supposed to have 3 arteries in your lower legs. I have 1 in each leg after the surgeries. And then they cut out my donor vein, which runs like the seam of your pants and your inner thighs. So they literally cut all the way down to cut out my greater saphenous vein to make it into an arterial graft, which immediately failed. When I was retired, I was told that, well, I basically refused to be in a wheelchair any longer than I had to be. I hated it, and people that need them, absolutely, they're necessary.
Meaning to be in a wheelchair. I wish you had pictures. People can't visualize what you've gone through, or what your legs still look like, and how you have to deal with it. People making remarks. I'm sure you've told that, how people make remarks and they don't realize what they're through. I wish you had pictures today.
All right, well, let me see what I can do. Yes.
Words.
Well, with my scars, because there were so many, there was about 14 from all of the surgeries. I was told that I was a freak, that I was a disgrace, I was a monster. People would spit on me when I'd wear my uniform, because I had to wear, like, the best way I can explain it is they're like the Birkenstock sandals, but one was attached to a brace that went to my knee, but that wasn't for fun or for comfort. It was because I had 17% circulation in my lower legs. And so for me, it was definitely, it was very hard. I was very afraid of people just because of the fact that I would be embarrassed so badly. Like sometimes even trying to get, like, for example, like morphine, like in the pharmacy, they would stop the whole pharmacy to basically make fun of me. Like they would say that I was a disgrace to the uniform and all these other things. And I started to believe them, that I was a disgrace, that I should be ashamed of myself. And I very much didn't, I struggled very much with just being in front of people. And so it was very much a challenge. And it took me running for a national competition to really accept who I was.
I just emailed you one of the pictures you had texted me.
Oh no, I already did it. There
Okay,
you go.
got it. Okay.
So that's me and the my Air Jesuses. That was what I had to wear in my uniform. And like as you can see, my foot is starting to swell outside of it. That I'd only had those on for 10 minutes. I couldn't wear them any longer than 4 hours or I'd swell out of the shoe. And this is after about 4 months after surgery.
Okay.
And this is one more.
And the people have to see these to realize what you've gone through.
You're right.
So you got out. When did you retire? And I want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I retired in November of 2009. So
was that by your own? Is that because you wanted to, or was the military forcing you out?
It was not because I wanted to, ma'am. It was my goal to do 20 years of honorable service. I wanted to be the youngest EMT instructor in the Air Force. I ended up working for him after I was air evac'd, but not in any way that I ever wanted. But I was able to help with revamping the refresher program so less people would fail out of their refreshers, because that was an issue we were having at the time. But no, it was not my choice. And also, cruelly enough, so I don't know if you remember, I said I had tested for sergeant. So I asked 2 questions every day I woke up in the hospital. One was, where's Jeremy? Because that was my husband at the time. And the other was, did I make sergeant? Because I refused to be posthumously promoted to sergeant. I wanted to earn it while I was still alive, because it was supposed to come out in like August, but I had no concept of dates or times. I found out after, like, very shortly after my air evac, and my unit would not keep me there long enough for the results, which I begged, and they wouldn't do it. And I found out by myself in a wheelchair that I had made sergeant in the top 1% for my career field and the top 10% for all of the Air Force, which is quite rare considering it was like my second time testing. And I didn't know if they'd let me sew on sergeant. And it meant so much to me. And I wanted to go to Airman Leadership School with like a profile saying, I just couldn't do certain things. And I wanted to have a promotion ceremony. And, I wanted to do all of what you were supposed to do, even if it was in a lesser scale. I was denied all of that.
No, I'm sorry. What are you doing now, Brandi? What is your role in I know you promote and you're doing great things with women in different organizations. I especially love your Amelia that you deal with. Your other friends too, I forget their names, but
Miss Amanda is so nice too.
yeah, you've got such a nice group of women. And I think that's so nice. That's so nice what you're doing with your life right now. You're promoting people, you're promoting women, you're promoting so many nice things in spite of what has happened to you in your life.
So did you receive your flag or medal when you medically retired, and were you allowed to sew sergeant on?
I did sew on sergeant. I did it about, I think, 6 weeks before I retired, which I was very nervous because I had a very high line number because I was so young. And like, if you've tested 5 or 6 times, you put it on right away. But if you're very young in your career, like, you'll wait like 8 months. And so I didn't know if I had the 8 months, and they didn't know how to retire me. And so I did sew on sergeant. I did not get my flags or my medal that I had earned while I was in England. Unfortunately, everything happened to me in the summer, and that's when commanders will switch to another command. My commander had left, and he actually ended up going to Lackland or Wolford Hall, where I went. And sorry, my dog's just having the best time right now. Sorry. But no, I wanted to have a mini retirement like it was supposed to be, even though it was a medical retirement and not a normal 20-year retirement, which there's of course big differences. And my commander had adamantly called the other commander who I'd never served under a day outside the hospital. And he had asked him, what do you think that she should, have this medal? And he said, absolutely. She was my most point airman. I want her to have it because I'm going to be presenting it to her because he had left the command. He could no longer do it. And that commander called me and said, I would rather give the medal to someone who drank, drove, and killed a family of 4 than you. And I never had done anything to him, and it crushed me. And I was not given my flag. They told me that, no, they told my proffer, who was my drill sergeant. I actually found my old drill sergeant, and he retired me. My old commander and my first drill sergeant, they retired me. And one was the proffer, and one was master ceremonies. And when he went to the honor guard, he was laughed out, saying, disgraces don't deserve flags.
Brandi, how does it feel now? How are you living? From the time you retired, did it take a lot of, I'm sure I'm asking, I don't have.
I was very angry. I was very angry for 10 years, and rightfully so. And it took a very long time for me to be able to manage my pain and get off all the morphine and the methadone and the Percocet and stuff like that, but I was able to do it. And I realized I was punishing the people around me by being that angry, and it wasn't their fault. It wasn't fair to them. And so I became very big on promoting mental health and wellness and really sharing that with people. And that's why I started writing about alternative medical treatments for people with post-traumatic stress. And I had no idea I had PTSD. I had no idea that I had post-traumatic stress because of what happened, which now looking at it, I'm really? Were you surprised? But at the end of the day, I really wanted to help other people because I knew what it was like to be truly failed. Even when I needed help, I wasn't combat injured. So I was put in a different category, even though I needed things that they did as well. I would be thrown out of clinics or laughed out of them. And so for me, I was very big on trying to support others because I knew what it was like to truly need help and be failed.
Brandi, what I know of you, you're just such a sweet person inside and out. You have had a real battle to fight. And I just think it's so amazing that you're able to handle it physically and mentally. It's not, we can't say we know how you feel. We don't walk in your shoes, but I think you've done a beautiful job of handling your life. I know you've still got a long way to go, but just hang in there, Brandi. You've done a wonderful job, and you're still doing such nice things. Look what you're doing for me, for Deb. Look at this podcast. Deb and I couldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you. So you reach out to so many people. So whatever you do, don't give up. Because like I said, you're a beautiful person inside and out.
And I know I speak for Mae and everyone else when I say thank you for your service.
It was my honor to serve.
Thank you. And I hope you're treated fairly. You deserve you deserve so much more than what you're getting, in my feeling of all of this. It's not fair for me to judge. I can't judge, but I don't think you've been treated fairly with the military. But that's not for me to know or to say, you know.
So all of this inspired you to be a veterans advocate and later a writer.
It did. And, you know, writing became kind of a bit of a therapy for me because I could share information that I was given by people that treated special ops gentlemen and ladies. And I was able to share that with people. And it made me feel better that I could help others. And, you know, so many veterans have different stories and all of them are different. And, you know, for me, that's why I really wanted to become an advocate. We've had women come out to some of our classes. They were, they hadn't left their house literally for anything for 12 years. And they came out for our class. And that meant so much to me, you know, and we didn't know until she almost had a perfect score, but she had like this diabetic condition where she couldn't stand for 30 minutes or for like 30 seconds without her feet turning bright red, like she had dipped them in like boiling water. And so what she would do is she had ice blocks on her feet and she shot almost a perfect score on the range. And so we were like, you could probably take their job. And she started crying. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. And she goes, no, you don't understand. I haven't left my house in 12 years and I drove across the state for you guys because this meant a lot to me. And hearing these stories, you know, and speaking to other veterans or other people in general and hearing their stories, I just try to support because like I said, I know what it's like to need help and not have it and have apathy and scorn and cruel comments. And so if I can help either with my medical experience or by information that I've had over the years through my many adventures, I'm happy to share that.
Brandi, those beautiful flowers you make. And when I look at them, I think that's one of the ways you promote and raise money for your organizations. You know, aren't they beautiful? Yeah. Whenever I see them, I think of they just open up like they bloom. That's what you're doing, Brandi. You and those beautiful flowers, you're blooming together.
Oh.
So as we wrap this up, last very important question. Why do you think kindness matters more than ever?
Because the world is full of apathy and empathy is now needed more than ever because we are in such deficit.
Yeah, people are hurting. People are hurting. And thank you for what you do to help them.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for all you do. And also, I wanted to point out something because I heard you say 1 year. This podcast has been going on now for 2 years.
You know, when I said that, I'm like, wait a minute. I think I'm confused. I never watched them, so I can't tell you. Mae watches them for me.
And I'm so proud of them. So thank you, Brandi, for what you've done for Deb and I. We couldn't be doing these podcasts if it wasn't for you. And you know, it's so good to reach out to people and tell their stories. Deb and I have met some really wonderful people, and it's important that they tell. It's very important that you tell your story. I mean, we don't have the answers to anything that you've told us today, and I'm sure it's going to be a lifetime battle for you. But, you know, the way you're handling it is wonderful, like you're reaching out to everybody. Well, I seen when we were in Florida how everybody loves you. And so remember that, you know, love's important in our lives. And they all love you, and they all know who you are, Brandi.
They all knew who you were, Miss Mae. What are you talking about? I never saw 200 people move so fast to get in a line in my life. As soon as they said Mae signing autographs, it was like people almost ran. I was whoa.
Well, you didn't tell them about our experience with the driving the tank. When I told Brandi, I said our group of paratroopers that I deal with, they want me to jump. And they've been after me to jump. And I said, no, I wouldn't do it. I'm too old. And Brandi said, well, Mae, I know you won't jump, but will you drive a tank? And I said, oh, sure, I can drive a tank. I never did. How hard it was to get in and out of that damn thing. Driving it wasn't bad.
I just remember thinking I was concerned because I was pretty sure it was a felony to harm a national treasure like yourself. Like if I could have put you in a bubble, I would have. I thought about it.
People to be able to share these affairs like this. Like I said, I met so many of your friends, like Amelia, her story too. I mean, there's so many stories out there, and they should be told. It's just a shame that we can't do more to promote people like you, Brandi, and your programs. You're just wonderful what you're doing, how you're sharing your life. Even though you've had such a traumatic life, you're still bringing love and warmth out there for the rest of us.
That's right. Thank you, Brandi, and thank you so much for being on our podcast today. It was important that we had you on.
Thank you for what you do for us, Brandi. We really appreciated it.
And so with that, I'm going to say, if you didn't get your book, get your book. It's a good one. Get it for the kids, or it's for kids of all ages.
Not even that. It's just an amazing historical item, really.
It is. It's wonderful. Dave did a great job.
But you know, Brandi, they didn't tell me. They didn't tell me. They kept me in the dark for a year.
She helped.
To be fair, I did
help.
But the tank was picked before I was told.
All right. Well, listen, we're running over time. Brandi, thank you. And we'll be back next month with another great story. As we always end this, be kind to one another. These are difficult times. So let's try to be kind. And ladies, shall we power up?
Well, my last words are laughter is the best medicine.
There you go.
Now, isn't that wonderful?
There you go. All right, ladies, let's power up.
Well, we can do it.
We can do it.